Boa tarde a todos, sejam bem-vindos à nossa sessão de comunicações orais. Hoje nós teremos 3 apresentações e nós propomos a seguinte dinâmica. Nós vamos apresentar na sequência os 3 vídeos com as palestras, né, as apresentações de cada um dos participantes, e na sequência nós vamos abrir para perguntas, tá? So, in English, the same instruction. Good afternoon, everybody. We will present here the session of oral communications, the paper presentations. So we will propose the following dynamics. We will present all the 3 videos in a sequence, and at the end of the presentations, we will ask you we will open the space to questions. Well, now we will start our paper presentation with the first paper, Still Life with Silence, The Value of Music and the Value of Silence by Agustín Castilla-Ávila.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much to the Simposio Internacional de Música Nova for inviting me to present this paper, The Value of Music and the Value of Silence. I am very honored and very happy to be with you online. I wish you are all very healthy. I wish we will be all soon over this world situation. And so the paper, I will be talking mainly today about, some of my research on silence, on my artistic research on silence, focusing on graphic works, still life with silence. And also, very shortly, I will present the very first silent opera, The Rest is Silence, written in 2013. And to start with, I like very much Claude Debussy, and I'm really curious to know what he really had in his mind in many occasions when he spoke about his music. It's kind of very mysterious to me. So music is the silence between the notes. So, I mean, I can interpret, he means, he's talking about the resonance. And then I connected to some mystical ideas that I will talk about the resonance of the universe, which even though I like very much to speak, and I don't believe that silence exists in the universe, I'm going to be talking about silence indeed. So the first works are my graphical works, Still Life with Silence, or in German, Stillleben mit Stille. When I came here to Salzburg in 2004, I really had an enormous interest in silence. The song Silent Night was composed here in Salzburg, and probably that was like the click that which made me do a lot of thinking about silence. So mainly what I do with Still Life with Silence, I observe in the world in the 21st century that there's an interchange of the values between silence and music. In my opinion, the value music used to have historically, I mean, it's now the value that silence has today. So actually, to be consequent to these values, which I believe it is like this, I have to, if I compose with values, I have to be consequent, and I have to treat silence, or in our musical language, the rests, as the sounds, as the notes in the tradition. I am also very concerned about intelligence, artificial intelligence. So I heard in a few occasions that artificial intelligence will hear our inner voice at some point. And so as an artist, first, I'm free to believe that, or not to believe this. I don't think it's going to happen. And even though I consider myself a person or an artist in the group, I'm very aware that we are all like a huge net of people. Actually, we all belong together. But I think this inner voice is really important to represent the individuality, actually. And so I don't believe that I want to represent this in these works continuously. And I want to show that, to give a contra speech to these ideas that artificial intelligence will reach there. And also with this graphic material, I try to represent symbolically, and we have to even go back to the beginning of languages around the world, about symbols, and to try to recreate a new language with these symbols to represent the elements of a concrete person, so that I kind of make a portrait of this person with a lot of symbols connected to this particular person. It is, most of them are portraits. I call them portraits. I can do the same and try to recreate landscapes. I will also show some landscapes. And sometimes I also confront, I represent the confrontation between the language and the music language. And of course, of these elements will stimulate the fantasy when you see these works. And for me, probably the most important idea is that fantasy is really, in my opinion, again, is the difference between humans and the rest of living creatures. I mean, animals, plants, fungi, there's a lot of intelligence in the universe. There's huge intelligence, feelings. We are really very, very similar. But what, in my opinion, what it makes us really human is the fantasy. So it's an element that every time I have a good occasion, a good opportunity to use, to show this message that this is the value of the fantasy, I will also use it. So the first work I'm going to show, it represents polysyopy, actually, because polyphony, I'm not so, I don't agree so much with the terminology we created historically in the music language and how it is today, according to our thoughts in today's society. So actually, if I try to, with this work, I try to write some polyphony for the inner voice. So actually, it cannot be called polyphony, so that more sounds at the same time, but more silences, which is like a contradiction at the same time. So let me show this work. So this is a portrait of Christian Offenbauer. So Christian Offenbauer, he's a composer from Vienna. During my studies, I met him. I had wonderful times with him. And we talked so much about contrapunct, for example. He is also a master of Kyudo, which is archery. So actually this huge bow represents him. I wanted to show this kind of portraits with this huge bow. So at the same time, I was thinking, okay, what is the meaning of bow, of the physical bow of many instruments, and also the graphical bow in the score. So I wanted to mix all these elements. And for this, actually, this is what I just mentioned about terminology. So this is for string quartet without strings. I mean, why do we call it strings? Guitar also has strings, and we don't call it in the same way. So actually, I wrote this for string quartet without strings. You call it I'm not so worried about the definition. And so in which I use a lot of bows. And so it comes, these lines, black and white, actually, so it can stimulate your fantasy. It might be that you see a little boat here, or a fish, or another fish, or some birds. It's your fantasy, of course. I do all these patterns actually with the program Sibelius for notation. I don't want to do this with the hand, actually. The pattern should be done with Sibelius. So actually what I'm doing here is very strict polyphonic rules. But actually this is not polyphony. I treat this interchange of values, I treat rests as sounds. So this is what happens actually. And I should really go forward and show you some of these examples of these works. This is a portrait of Katarina Schwarz, a German soprano singer, and which was born in the month of May. So I'm using here a quotation by Schumann in the wonderful, im wunderschönen Monat Mai, in the wonderful month of May. So I try to recreate a kind of spring landscape in which and tell a little story about this person who was born in this time. And another one is a kind of portrait of Jens Rosell, which is also a portrait has to do with Gunnar Berg. Jens Rosell is the biographer of Gunnar Berg, and it has to do also with own drawings of Gunnar Berg. Normally, I use several topics in one of these portraits. In this case, it's a confrontation between a harp and a piano. So it's kind of a harp representing being free, and a piano, a harp which is in a box. So actually, this is why straight away I start this work, like these lines going somewhere else they are not allowed to do, and kind of confronted with two-dimensional scores, which we use, kind of giving some elements of three-dimensional. And this is one of the drawings by Gunnar Berg. I really have to go very quickly. So some other works, some other portraits of Jose Maria Mellado. This is a minute of silence, actually. So for me, for Nikolaus Hanoncourt, is the fastest I ever did. Normally, it takes an average of 6 months to do one of these works. And this was the fastest one. And so if I am to write a minute of silence to pay my respects for somebody who passes away, I cannot just represent this with just a very small symbol and with a fermata and a duration of 1 minute. I have to really create something more in like a masterpiece, of course, that which he deserves. So this is one of the landscapes. I had to pay an homage to Silent Night. So actually what you see this here, it's kind of a postcard, like a Christmas postcard. You may see Obendorf, where the song was composed. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. This one is also a landscape of Salzburg. This logo, these lines actually is called the States of the World. And because of COVID that we are still suffering, Salzburg, I mean, known as the States of the World, was completely silent. So actually this work here is called Silence on the States of the World. And the last one called Silence Gives Consent, which is a quotation by Plato. So I confront here our language, musical language, through silence and the language we all use. And I only have 1 minute, so actually I will come to at least maybe in the question time, I can speak a little bit more about this. This is just 1 minute of the rest is silence.
Thank you very much, Agustín. We will now proceed to the second presentation from Barry 1, Application of the Aesthetic of Guqin for Contemporary Music Composition. Okay, we had a small problem here, technical problem. Well, while that, if you have any questions, you can send us through the chat, and we will read. If you speak, se vocês falam português, vocês podem escrever em português também. If you speak Portuguese, you can write in Portuguese. We can translate to the authors, the presenters. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thanks for coming to my presentation today. My presentation topic is application of aesthetic of Guqin for contemporary music composition. Before I start my presentation, I would like to introduce myself. I study animation and photography in Hong Kong at Ivy and VTC respectively. In 2010, I started my overseas study. I studied Bachelor of Multimedia Composition at Czech Academy of Music and Performing Arts in Brno. After that, I studied my second Bachelor at London College of Music. Then I continued my master degree of electroacoustic music composition at the Academy of Performing Arts in Prague, Czech Republic. Currently, I study at Evangelista Burkina University in Ústí, Labem, Czech Republic. My pieces has been performed in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, USA, Mexico, Brazil, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Spain, Sweden, and Belarus. Also, my music has been awarded and featured in various international competitions and music festivals below. I have 3 goals for the presentation. First of all, getting the basic knowledge of Guqin. Secondly, appreciation of Guqin music and its aesthetic. The last one is application of the aesthetic and principles of Guqin to contemporary music composition. It can be beneficial for contemporary composers. First of all, I would like to introduce Guqin. The original name of Guqin is Qin. In the middle of 20th century, the terms Guqin applied to various Chinese traditional and translation of Western instruments, such as Yuanqin, Laoqin, Gangqin, piano, and harp, Suqin. The prefix Gu was added later for classification. The meaning of Gu is ancient, historical, or old. It is a seven-stringed Chinese musical instrument, as you can see in the picture. It belongs to Suk family of Bai-yin classification. It is one of the oldest Chinese instruments, appearing in classical writing as early as the Guqin period, which means about 4,000 years ago. Guqin was the most important in the four arts. The four arts of the Chinese scholar were the four main academic and artistic accomplishments required of the aristocratic and ancient Chinese scholar gentlemen. They are Qin, Guqin. Qi is a board game and art form which is now called Weiqi. Shu, Chinese calligraphy, and Hua, Chinese painting. In Liji written, scholars never put away their Guqin and use without special reason. We also call Guqin the father of Chinese music and the instrument of the sages. Now I would like to talk about how to apply the aesthetic of Guqin music to the contemporary music composition. The music of Guqin is always sweet and subtle. The aesthetic of Guqin is very familiar and related to the other Asian Chinese art form. One example would be literature, particularly pottery, painting, and calligraphy. The Shisan treatise, which is one of the most influential theses for Qin, proposed the player strive for a spiritual state of mind. It's written, before you press the strings, you should first compose yourself, clear the heart, relax the mind, and distance your spirit. This idea is very suitable for contemporary music interpretation because contemporary music characterized by mood, emotion, and dramatic expression. Encouraging performer into the spiritual state of mind could achieve much more effective music expression. I have an example here, which is my composition, Kaze, Wind, for Emily. It was premiered in the Opera Contemporary Music Festival in Sweden. This is the performance direction of the piece, giving several suggestions for her before playing the concert below. Situate herself in the wind and imagine herself as the summer breeze before the concert. Clear her heart, relax her mind, as well as imitate the wind into her sounds. The outcome was very remarkable and impressive. After the concert, the performer expressed it was very enjoyable and useful for her to being into the wind and relax her mind before the concert. Guqin music is very different from the Western conventional music, which often employ harmonic accompaniment. Guqin music is characterized by a small volume of sound, the usage of gliding sounds. The changing of timbre of each note is essential to achieve the poetic mood. Since Guqin is plucked string instrument, sounds are mainly produced by right hand plucking. It can categorize into three types by the playing method. The first one is San-yin, open string note, An-yin, stopped string note, Fan-yin, harmonic note. The first type is San-yin. Guqin has 7 open string notes. The color of the open string notes are round and moist with long sustain. The second one is Fan-yin stop the string. Because Guqin has no bridges, left hand can move freely and playing with details colors. Handling and arrange those details decide a player good or not. The main elements of the left hand techniques are Chao, Ju, Yin, and Yao. The last type is Fan-yin, harmonic notes. Harmonic notes are very important for Guqin music. The harmonic position are the 13 stud position on the Guqin. We can have a look at the picture. Those white dots are the stud position, which can produce the harmonic note. The player can play the harmonic notes easily. The range of the harmonic notes are over 3 octaves. The timbres are clear and distinct. It can express an open and transcendental mood. Harmonic notes usually applied in the beginning and the end. The example here demonstrates the combination of timbres in Guqin music. It is a traditional kin pieces which combines different timbres. The timbre of music has been greatly altered by 20th century composers, such as Takemitsu, Penderecki, and Xenakis. The aesthetic and the practical methods of using the timbres in Guqin can be very helpful for contemporary music composition. The example here is also my composition, Leaves Dancing in the Autumn Breeze, for guitar and fixed media, which combine different timbres together. Let's listen to it. Guqin music often starts in free rhythm or very slow tempo with harmonic notes, followed by a mature section in a certain tempo. Nonetheless, it often did not have a fixed metric. In contrast to Western traditional music with precise metric, such as duple, triple, and quadruple meter. The example here is a conventional Guqin pieces, white slow. According to the score, the time signature are not written for each bar. It is similar to Olivier Messiaen's notation for a metric music. The meter from bar 14 to 20 are 11/4, 9/4, 13/4, 7/4, 9/4, 9/4, and 8/4 respectively. It illustrates the metric structure. And we can also see here the phase lengths are irregular. Using irregular phasing can be a very useful strategy for music composition, which could provide an unexpected progression and expression to audience. This example showed the application of asymmetrical and irregular phase length in contemporary music composition. This example here is also my composition, Seascape, for flute and fixed media. I use the proportional notation here because it can remove the metric accent from regular stave notation. In order to achieve the asymmetrical approach by adding accent and diminuendo aliente, which means gradually fade out to silent in particular notes to emphasize the phasing. The outcome of the music provides an improvisation-like, freely, distant, atmospheric, and dreamy mood. Let's listen to it. In conclusion, the presentation briefly analyzes the aesthetic, philosophy, and principle of Guqin, and attempts to use those for contemporary music composition and interpretation. The result is significant. Hopefully, it could provide a useful and effective strategy for contemporary music composition. It is only the first stage of the research. I believe the aesthetic of Guqin can inspire much more compositional skills, aesthetic and interpretation manner of contemporary music. Hopefully, in the near future, I would have an opportunity to continue this research and explore much more deeper. Thank you for your attention. Please feel free to contact me if you had any question or feedback about this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Now we will proceed to the last presentation, Echoes, a sound feedback control model for live electronics performance by Ricardo Thomasi e Regis Faria.
Olá, meu nome é Ricardo Thomasi e eu estou apresentando uma parte da minha pesquisa de doutorado que está sendo realizada na Universidade de São Paulo. Chamamos aqui de Ecos. Em suma, trata-se de uma investigação sobre possibilidades de estruturação musical com base em teorias de emergências, que se utiliza do paradigma dos ecossistemas audíveis, cunhado pelo compositor Agustín de Scipio, como um território de experimentação e análise dessas possibilidades. Nossa hipótese é que estratégias de controle significativas de estruturas emergentes, das quais as estruturas sonoras fazem parte, possam ser estudadas em modelos cujo ambiente acústico é parte do sistema musical, assim como nos ecossistemas audíveis, e a partir desses estudos podemos apresentar um modo de instrumentalização do feedback loop que possibilite novos modelos de performance artística e musical dentro desse vasto território da música eletroacústica. A base desse sistema é a retroalimentação de um sinal que passa pelo ambiente acústico, analógico e digital, criando um loop. Um exemplo clássico é a microfonia. O feedback positivo tende ao infinito, sendo restringido apenas pela capacidade física do equipamento. Sendo assim, os modelos de sistemas de feedback utilizados para performance musical geralmente vêm acoplado com um tipo de analisador que estará regulando ou alterando o estado do sistema de modo a não deixar que o sistema sature com um feedback positivo. No caso das microfonias, que podem ser chamadas também de Larsen tones, a frequência sonora ouvida é o primeiro nível de estruturas sonoras emergentes desse sistema. O sistema em si não contém essa frequência, ele não tem um gerador que produz essa frequência. Pelo contrário, a frequência é produzida a partir das condições que o sistema exibe e de suas limitações físicas. Aqui temos uma imagem que mostra o momento em que a frequência começa a tomar forma. Do lado esquerdo, temos apenas o ruído de fundo, né, como partículas desordenadas. À medida que o loop se forma, e a cada volta desse loop, algumas qualidades, tanto da sala, né, do ambiente acústico, quanto do equipamento e do ambiente digital, começam a vir à tona e se sobressaem diante de outras por alguma razão. Então, o que temos é a emergência de uma estrutura sonora que surge como fenômeno de organização desse sistema. Nesse caso, essa frequência gerada é um componente atrator, um componente que tem a capacidade de direcionar a evolução do sistema. Uma vez que você controla a primeira frequência, abre-se espaço para o surgimento de uma segunda frequência. Então você controla essa segunda frequência e uma terceira aparece e assim por diante. Ou seja, você tem a emergência de um espectro cujo conteúdo é dependente das qualidades acústicas, analógicas e digitais. E é justamente por isso que consideramos como estrutura emergente, pois o que está na base da emergência é a interação entre esses três ambientes conectados pelo feedback loop. Nesse sentido, a nossa própria noção de controle do sistema é alterado. Trata-se de um controle indireto, em que você age no sistema de modo a influenciar a evolução desse sistema para uma ou outra direção. No caso, as ações estão centradas no que estamos chamando de cadeias de correlações de causas. Assim, toda a modelagem de controles está centrada em identificar, agir e criar novos elementos atratores, e, ao mesmo tempo, preservar as capacidades de evolução natural, sensibilidade e responsividade desse sistema. Assim, muitas das técnicas clássicas de uso de bancos de filtros, envelopes e modulações não funcionam aqui, pois são técnicas que iriam estagnar o sistema ou limitar a sua sensibilidade. Assim, a pesquisa segue em uma triangulação entre a nossa hipótese de estruturação musical baseada em emergências, a elaboração de estratégias de controle, aqui concretizadas no que estamos chamando de instrumento espacial porque lida com condições do espaço físico, e 4 estudos musicais voltados para a performance eletroacústica, que estamos chamando de ecos, sendo que o ecos número 1 e o ecos número 2 estão voltados para o desenvolvimento desse instrumento, e o ecos número 3 e número 4 para experimentação com outros modelos de performance, além do live electronic solo, incorporando outros computadores, instrumentos acústicos, performance de corpo, visual, audiovisual, instalações, etc. O dispositivo de controle contém 2 partes. De um lado, o estabilizador das frequências ressonantes, que se utiliza de técnicas básicas de filtragem espectral, e do outro, um filtro adaptativo multibanda, que se ajusta para conseguir controlar as frequências que surgem em diferentes pontos do espaço espectral. A título de exemplo, temos um gerador de ruído e um gerador de senoide. Do lado esquerdo, temos o dispositivo que está filtrando a senoide do resto do espectro, mantendo assim o sistema estável. Do lado direito, o espectro completo, que em uma situação real iria retroalimentar e saturar o sistema como uma microfonia comum. Aqui uma situação real, um feedback loop, uma vez que o sistema está estabilizado, conseguimos ter o desdobramento do conteúdo espectral. Aqui o filtro adaptativo multibanda, podemos observar que ele acompanha o movimento da senoide. Quando colocamos um espectro mais complexo, ele se ajusta simultaneamente em diferentes regiões. Em uma situação real, como no feedback loop, o filtro se ajusta às frequências mantendo uma alta sensibilidade às flutuações acústicas. Esse modelo propicia o controle do feedback positivo sem uso de compressão ou de linhas de delay, assegurando também quanto ao surgimento de artefatos prejudiciais, como o DC offset. As gravações que ouviremos aqui foram feitas nessa sala, com 4 microfones condensadores direcionais posicionados em diferentes locais da sala e 4 alto-falantes, também com diferentes timbres e tamanhos, sendo que do microfone 1 à caixa 4 temos aproximadamente 4 metros. É uma sala que tem bastante reverberação, bastante ruído externo, sons de rua, mas que para o ecossistema audível são condições aceitáveis. A primeira questão de controle desse sistema está relacionada com a estrutura de ganhos. Primeiro, o ganho não tem um impacto simples, no sentido de aumentar ou diminuir o volume. Ao contrário, quanto maior o ganho, maior a energia que circula por esse sistema, o que corresponde a um aumento do conteúdo de harmônicos, resultando em expansões e transformações espectrais. A segunda questão é que o controle de ganho não está centrado em um único controle, mas distribuído por diferentes camadas do sistema. Cada sinal, cada feedback que é criado, gera uma estrutura de ganhos própria e interage diretamente com outros loops que já estão circulando. Em suma, temos esta estrutura de ganhos. Um sinal é captado pelo microfone, sendo o primeiro nível de ganho o pré-amplificador do microfone e a qualidade da conversão analógica digital. E do mesmo modo, a qualidade de conversão digital analógica e o ganho das caixas de som. Em seguida, já no ambiente digital, é possível ter o controle de input, as linhas de delay, que para cada cópia precisa um controle de volume específico, a matrix, que gerencia todo o roteamento de sinal e tem impacto direto em todos os ganhos individuais, e o controle da saída master, que envia o sinal para as caixas. E, obviamente, a outra parte dessa estrutura de ganhos está no ambiente acústico, através da distância entre microfones e alto-falantes, que quanto mais perto, maior o ganho, e vice-versa, e através da responsividade da sala, pois uma sala morta irá responder com um conteúdo de harmônicos e intensidades totalmente diferentes de uma sala mais reverberante, por exemplo. Nesse sentido, vamos na contramão do senso comum da engenharia de áudio, uma vez que a maioria das inconsistências acústicas e de equipamentos são, aqui, elementos que enriquecem a capacidade tímbrica do ecossistema audível. Devido à sensibilidade às pequenas variações de ganho, os controles do sistema digital precisam permitir uma ação rápida e ao mesmo tempo minuciosa, pois, uma vez que o sistema atinge o estado crítico, região em que a energia circula pelo sistema, mas as frequências ainda não emergiram, pequenas variações no controle de ganhos possibilitam mudanças significativas. O interessante é que, controlando os ganhos, é possível retornar para certas configurações espectrais. Inserindo linhas de delays, conseguimos explorar outras configurações espectrais, seja pela distribuição das vozes e respectivos aumentos de ganho, seja pela sobreposição de vozes que gera batimentos e filtragem por defasagem. Alterando os ganhos dos delays, altera-se também o modo como o conteúdo das cópias interage. Aqui, o uso da matrix para mixar as relações de input e output entre microfones e alto-falantes. A mudança da topologia dos feedbacks no espaço acústico altera toda a estrutura de relações do sistema, mesmo que seja mantida a configuração do ambiente digital, como, por exemplo, as linhas de delays. título de exemplo, posicionamos os microfones 3 e 4 em sentido contrário, de modo a enfatizar a captação defasada e diferentes partes das reflexões acústicas. Assim, é possível utilizar-se de tais diferenças para gerar estruturas pulsantes e ou contrastantes. O controle de fase de cada microfone também é uma forma de controlar o ganho, mas, aparentemente, com menos impacto na estrutura de ganhos como um todo, uma vez que ele anula apenas uma parte do sinal que já está retroalimentado. Outra estratégia é o uso de padrões periódicos que, ao invés de criarem uma modulação direta, causam instabilidade em uma determinada porção da estrutura do sistema e resultam no surgimento de novas estruturas. Exemplo, na modulação de fase e também na modulação dos tempos das linhas de delays, cuja lacuna de espera pode criar pulsações ou, em casos de altos ganhos, ativar e desativar loops de feedback muito rapidamente, gerando sonoridades mais caóticas. Outra estratégia que tem mostrado bons resultados é o uso de filtros digitais com atratores fortes, direcionando a retroalimentação para uma determinada banda do espectro. Nesse exemplo, usamos um oscilador periódico para modular a frequência do filtro, fazendo com que este padrão provocasse o surgimento de outras estruturas. Essa pesquisa ela tem contribuído para lançarmos novos olhares para o controle de ganhos e seu impacto na geração de conteúdo espectral, na espacialização sonora multicanal, que apresenta aqui uma propriedade morfológica direta, ao uso de técnicas de filtragem, pois os filtros tornam-se atratores e reconfiguram o sistema, e também sobre o uso de linhas de delays e modulação de fase como meio de criar estruturas emergentes mais distantes das condições iniciais do sistema. Mas, sobretudo, acreditamos que a grande abertura de possibilidades de exploração evidencia o paradigma dos ecossistemas audíveis como um princípio, também para novos olhares de criação e performance musical como um todo.
Obrigado. Thank you, Ricardo. I will now invite the authors, the participants, to join me online so we can reply questions placed on chat. Well, good afternoon to see you again. Well, from the chat, we had a first question from Tadeu Tafarello that I think was already replied by Agustín. He apologizes, but he asks Agustín if he apologized, sorry, because he lost the start of the presentation, the beginning. So he asked if the graphical scores presented are thinking or are thought to be interpreted by musicians, or if they are thought as visual arts projections.
Both. I mean, especially the string quartet has been performed many times. Unfortunately, I have no video. I'm sorry, I maybe I did wrong answering already at the YouTube page. But yeah, so of course they are both intended like this. I also sent a link of some video by two guitar players in Tokyo. I didn't give any instructions. For me, it's important that the own interpretation of the musicians. And I was really amazed that they constructed like a choreography, which I didn't write, it has to be like this. But it was the way they decided to represent silence somehow. It was very interesting for me, very, very important to see how silence is conceived.
Mm-hmm. Nice, nice. And just a small question. You mentioned that you placed a link, but I believe that the chat is blocking links. I can't see it.
Yes.
You can send us through the chat on StreamYard, and we can place online.
Okay. Okay, so this is
safety measures of YouTube. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So I guess, okay, this is an interpretation, musical, in a musical situation. And there's another one. Okay, I thought in a Portuguese, I mean, this an exhibition in Portugal. I thought it was the most appropriate for Brazil. So StreamYard. Sorry, I'm confusing myself. Okay, so thank you.
I will follow the questions as placed on chat. The next question will be Guilherme Ginskin asking you to talk a little more about polysopy.
Yes. So actually, for me, it's very difficult to find definitions that will work forever. I mean, I can just say my opinion, how I would call it. But so it was either this could be called polyphony for the inner voice. Right now, even if we are in a digital situation, very far away from each other, there's my physical voice and there's your inner voice. I don't know. Nobody can hear that. Only you. And so actually, this polyphony is thought for this inner voice as an instrument, or I like to call it, I mean, if we put it in a context outside our inner voice, it is polysopy. And I can send some articles as well. Actually, maybe here in the chat, I can put this one small article, very old one. I can also give it from the University of North Georgia. There's a little bit, and then there's another one in German by Wolfgang Gratzer. He speaks so much about polysopy. Actually, it's the first time a musicologist was using this word, and some other people are using polysopy. I don't know. Maybe one day, if I have children, I will tell them, "Oh, there's a new word that not much use, but anyway."
Thank you. Well, the next question is from Professor Felipe Ribeiro. Ricardo, is your patch available as ready-made for educators?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Clayton. No, it's not available yet because I need to do some tests, some experiments, mainly with performance situations, and to test the patch in another rooms, another places, because during the pandemic period, I can't do this. So this is.
Yeah, this is a real problem for installed art projects and projects like yours. Well, but we are anxious, me too, to receive your patches.
Maravilha, muito bom.
Next question is from Professor Felipe also. Barry, can you talk a bit about how Guqin music and the idea of consonance? What are the difference of Western music?
Okay, thank you. And I think the main things different from the Western music is like the Guqin music. It doesn't have the climax. In terms of the good music during that time or the aesthetic of Guqin, it's like without climax. The music only can keep you calm, and you will feel comfortable, like a Zen practice or something like that. Because it was like also related to the Buddhism and also the Taoism idea to make yourself silence or calm down. It's something like that. And consonants is very good question, because I think for Asian music it's not like in Western music. In Western music you have a lot of techniques. You have scale, arpeggio. Also you have some mechanics to make you like playing faster or something like that. But for our music, we change the color. Mainly we change the color. For example, we play the same pitch. For example, the same pitch like for example, like E4, we just play in different strings and or different positions. So the color can be really different, but we are only playing the same notes over and over again, or in the same sentence, but in different passage, we use different position. So it changed the color. It's very subtle. We don't use very expressions like big arpeggios or like a huge dynamic change. We don't do it. And also for the Guqin, we don't have a very big dynamic change, since the materials of the instrument is silk. It's not steel string. And in Hong Kong and in Taiwan, we're still using the silk. It's very soft substance, so it doesn't produce so big sound. So I think this is the main difference. We play more like the tones and the color and the timbres, instead of making like a huge arpeggios or like very different things. Yes.
Thank you, Barry. I think we ended the questions on chat, and I have okay. Just came another question. What about tempered system? Is there any conflict with playing with piano?
Is this for me?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, what about temperance? Okay, so I think for Guqin, it's just intonation. It is not equal temperament. And even they have different tuning before, but I think nowadays they use the just intonation.
Nice. And I had another question for you too, Barry. Well, first, I love the way you are bridging traditional and contemporary music, but I remain curious about the methodologies you are using to approach your research on this subject. There are several methodologies like intertextuality, rewriting. So I understood that you are focusing on timbre, but are you bringing some kind of reference to music, traditional music, or things like that?
Okay, so I think I applied the traditional way to how to change the timbre and to the contemporary music writing. For example, for my guitar pieces, I use the open string and the stopped string with the harmonics, which three of them are the same pitch, but the color are very different when they're playing together, or slightly like the grooves is slightly different. So I make this kind of effect. This is like very typical technique from Guqin. And also, I also use the noise, because for Guqin, they have the noise. The left hand, when you are moving, you are playing, changing position, and the right hand is playing. And it has a lot of noise because of the substance of the material is silk. So this is like very noisy, but this is part of the music. It is essential. So I do the same thing on the guitar. I usually use a little bit sandpaper to make it more like a rough on the bass string, and then I produce the sound. I think it works well in this way for me as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Professor Felipe is asking, sorry for many questions, but he's asking Ricardo, what are the connections you see between your music and Brandon Label's ideas from yesterday? We're in Brazil. You can answer in Portuguese if you would like, or as you wish.
Ok, acho que eu vou responder em português, porque essa vai ser pesada. Bom, primeiro, eu acredito que isso não é uma questão da minha pesquisa em si, mas da pesquisa do Agustín de Chipre, quando ele começa a propor a ideia de ecossistemas audíveis. E isso coloca em xeque muito do que a gente tem tomado como paradigmas discutíveis, né, que concerne, por exemplo, o nosso entendimento técnico, a questão da escuta, os modos de performance, os modos de lidar com os instrumentos. Nesse sentido, eu acredito que muito do que o professor Labem disse ontem na palestra, sobre a questão da escuta, né, de você ter uma consciência acústica do meio, né, e de que o que você escuta também está relacionado com questões políticas, né, com questões, com relações de poder e etc. Tudo isso ele ganha uma força muito grande quando você está dentro de uma sala, de uma situação como a proposta pelos ecossistemas audíveis, onde as coisas elas acabam entrando num mundo paralelo, né? Elas não funcionam da mesma maneira como a gente está acostumado, né? Os detalhes, as coisas que você às vezes passa despercebida, elas começam a funcionar de uma maneira que você não espera, e o que você esperava não funciona mais, né? Então ele não responde, assim. Então eu acho que tem muita conexão, né? O próprio Agostín de Chipre tem publicado muitos artigos nesse sentido, né? Eu acredito que toda a discussão também daquele som arquitetural que o professor Labem vem falando também tem muito a ver com isso, né? Uma vez que o ecossistema auditivo é totalmente responsivo à arquitetura, à parte física, né, da sala, né? Então, com certeza, assim, tem muito que se discutir ainda, que se analisar, investigar. E isso são questões totalmente atuais, assim, né? As publicações datam de 2017 para cá, a esse respeito. Não sei se você vai traduzir tudo isso. Eu não ia conseguir falar inglês, desculpa.
Neither do I. Sorry, I could not translate what he told. It was very complex. Sorry, but well, thank you very much, everybody. I think we did not have any more questions, so I see you on the concert of Ricardo Thomasi. It's a recital lecture at 5 p.m. So I meet you soon. Thank you very much for your presence.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.